Hello, everyone, and welcome to our third episode of our Buyers Tell All series, where we've been bringing together industry leaders from across tech to talk about what they're doing to address all the change that's happening across the tech industry, whether that's different use cases that they're applying, looking at the latest trends, and really, we're trying to get down to how are they making their company successful? How are they growing in their careers? And at the end of the day, we all want to connect with our professionals and their peers. And so here's our chance. So in prior weeks, we talked to HR professionals, we talked to sales leaders, and this week, we have some no-nonsense demand gen marketers. So I'd love to welcome Candace Gregg, who's a Senior Director of Demand Gen for the Americas at Bloomreach, and Kristen Hogan, who's the VP of Global Demand Gen at Apptio, an IBM Company. And we're going to discuss kind of the evolution of demand gen and the tech stacks to support that, and really meeting buyers where they are. So, ladies, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited that we can kind of tackle this topic.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Yay. So I think we should start with probably the hardest question that really sets the stage for what we're all feeling in the B2B marketing world and in demand gen. What's keeping us up at night? When you're running demand gen for a tech company, what is keeping you up at night? So Kristen, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm sure this is almost everyone's answer, but pipeline, and pipeline. I just think that the focus on what we do and the partnership with sales is just key. So making sure that it's healthy and that when it's not, we're pulling the right levers to get it to health is something that keeps me up. I will say this, what helps me sleep a little bit is knowing that I have the fortune of having constant data and measurement and analytics around program performance. So if we're failing forward all the time. And it's due to a fantastic kind of marketing operations team that stands behind everything that we do.
Well, that's good. So it's not all keeping you up at night. There is some remedy to it.
Yes.
And Candace, how about you?
Well, that does keep me up at night, but luckily I have a newborn, so I'm up anyway thinking about it. I won't repeat obviously what Kristen said. I think every demand gen team has that goal. If there's another goal out there that they have, I'd love to hear that one. But something we're really focused on at Bloomreach is actually quality of leads right now. We're shifting from a quantity metric down to quality, understanding our TAM, understanding our ICP, understanding where we win, and then bringing in the right leads and opportunities in the companies that we know we can win and that will serve their business as well. We're also, I don't sleep thinking about, if people don't know about Bloomreach, we market to some of the best marketers in the world, in my opinion, these amazing brands and retailers that we see all over everywhere, Nike, Nordstrom, the list goes on. So my team, I'm really trying to push them to be creative, be innovative. We have the tried and true channels that we know work, but we've got to be doing something different to stand out, especially the space we're in is extremely crowded and hard to break through.
So let's talk about that, Candace, a little bit more, because I think that's a great segue into thinking about the mindset of demand gen and how that's kind of shifted over the last few years, and from more of that kind of like traditional, to your point, like that quantity, we just need to kind of fill the top of the funnel. We'll worry about the conversion rates later. We just need volume. Or even, really partnering with your brand team and thinking about how you can have that really integrated kind of strategy when you're going after your target audience. So tell me a little bit about like the mind shift that you're pushing your team to be innovative and to kind of challenge the status quo.
Yeah, I think going back to the quality thing, we really had to back it with a ton of data to show that we actually don't need a lot of quantity to actually hit our goals. and that started with even just looking at the top of the funnel and looking at the conversion rates. When we generate 3x the number of leads that we need to get to that S2 number for us, it actually hurt our conversion rates. Whereas when we scoped down who we were targeting, what we were trying to bring in, it actually helped our sales team focus and concentrate on generating the pipeline from what we had in. And there wasn't all this noise around, stuff that they probably shouldn't have been paying attention to that we were possibly grasping at to get them to focus on. So that was how we got people on board.
Yeah. And Kristen, how about you? You talk a lot about what's your remedy for not keeping you up at night is around this kind of data-driven mindset. And how has that kind of really changed your demand gen strategy and kind of across the team?
Yeah, I think really similar to what Candace was just saying. I would say over the last 4 years, that progression for me, whatever company I was at, is really kind of taking some of that technology and the data. So buyer insights, the propensity to buy, the buyer behaviors, and really streamlining so that we're not having discussions about source, and we're not having discussions about quality, but really discussions around conversion. Because at the end of the day, it's the conversion. So if I can get our SDR organization focused on the right things at the right time, just like we're trying to do with the marketing that we're serving up, to those prospects or to an existing customer, where we're making sure that, we're serving them the right information at the right time. We're doing that same concept in-house so that we're enabling our SDRs as well as then the sales force by extension, so that they're focused on velocity. They're focused on the right types of things versus saying, oh yeah, look at this, we're 10x or we're 7x or we're 3x where we need to be. And okay, that's great for pipeline, but is it quality, to Candace's point? And I think one other thing that I would just mention is that I don't know if anyone would consider it innovation, but it's basically going back to the basics about an org structure and really understanding that marketing and sales need to be partners. We have shared pipeline goals with our sales organization. That doesn't happen everywhere, that everyone is working towards the same goals. We're in a structure, and really over the last 6 years have found it super beneficial that our marketing organization and sales organization are reporting in kind of through the same lines, so that you're removing a silo, a line, a border before anyone kind of jumps in place, if you will. So it's been very, very helpful for us to have that type of structure, which then enables the innovation of the tools, like I was saying, the data and insights and what you're able to do in your global orchestrated campaigns automatically now, because those tools are used so heavily, but they're also integrated into our CRM. So marketing's using it, but sales is also consuming that information as well. So we're all kind of same page.
Yeah, I think with the innovation too, like a lot of it, the sales team doesn't even see what we actually, all the tech stack we use to enrich our data on the back end, so that, the lead scoring based on pages they've seen, webinars they've attended, events they've talked to us at. The sales team doesn't even know what goes into scoring up that lead, but we actually fine tune it probably once a month to make sure that we're seeing really great conversions with MQLs. Should we be MQLing more, or, is it the right amount? And then, so I think, although it doesn't seem innovative because they're just getting a lead they normally get, the lead that's coming to them is hopefully also well-informed, because we're also running campaigns where we're trying to essentially teach them more about us before they even get to our website, without them knowing, through demos and click-through tours and that type of stuff. So,
and there's so much to unpack there. And I think, Chris, my ears, we're so excited to hear we don't fight over source. I think there's a lot of demand gen marketers in general that are on this call right now that are wow, to get that type of alignment with your sales team is like kind of the holy grail, because it's like at the end of the day, Candace, to your point, like if they're consuming our marketing, if they understand our value prop, they know our brand, when you outbound to them, they'll probably answer, right? And so you're not kind of like fighting over like who gets credit and all of that stuff, but you're really focusing on, hey, what's this integrated approach to the buyer's journey? How are we making sure, Candace, I love like fine tuning that scoring. Like that takes a lot of time and effort to really understand what's happening kind of downstream. So let's talk about kind of like, Kristen, how you got to like talking with your sales team. I know, again, kind of going back to that data, but like, how did you get to, again, that mind shift of, hey, we're like all in this together, and here's our shared metrics? Because I think a lot of people are trying to strive for that.
Yeah. So I think that honestly, we had to agree just at the top levels that yes, we could sign up for that kind of shared pipeline exit targets, for example. And what does that exactly mean? It was conversations around quality. It was conversations around, here's some basic data about the protection, honestly, of not only the prospects coming in, but the customers that are here. We are not going to overmarket. We have safety in place so that, you know, if you, Mr. Sales or Mrs. Salesperson, are working with that particular lead, there's an opportunity, we'll pull back our marketing. We'll just do a very light surround where they might just see us digitally somewhere, but we won't actively pursue them. They are not going to be bombarded. So there was a lot of, I think, conversations, A, around trust, and then B, around here's what we're actually going to be doing, when we're going to be doing it, how we're going to be doing it. And I think once we had, because people have experiences, obviously, with marketing from the sales side from all over, right? Can you stop talking to them? They don't want to receive this anymore. And that flows into, you know, our tools again, and making sure that we're using all the tools to the best of their capabilities. And then visibility, I think, was the other key thing. So around those shared pipeline metrics, at a very high level, there's a dashboard everyone can go to at any one time. We can talk through it. I can talk through it at a macro level. We can also talk through it down to an individual seller level so that we can understand where we might need to kind of pull different levers or put some other kind of quick hit program that are aligned to the large orchestrated programs that are happening to better kind of help that salesperson in their patch. Once we started actioning those things, then I think that's when we got the groundswell of trust from the majority of sales. Listen, we still have lots of room for progress, but I think that that's really what helped turn the corner for us.
I agree. I think that I've been here at 5 years and I've seen a lot of different changes in the org. We used to be global and now we're regional. We were part of sales and we were not. And I'd say like where I struggled for so many years was that inbound versus outbound mentality, when like I think we all believe that like obviously we need both, and we know that, you know, our sales team needs something to outbound on. They need messaging, they need campaigns, they need like interesting like announcements that we have. And then having, for us, what really helped was we kind of had a couple of champions who like we would show them the data, like look at how good our conversions are when we outbound on events and set meetings and invite them to these like bespoke experiences we do at our bigger events. Look at how well those convert into pipeline for your pods, is what we call them. And then, you know, once they start sharing those within the sales org, like how well that worked for setting the meeting, it kind of just like, we just at some point stopped talking about whether it was inbound or outbound, and just felt like we're also, you know, I had mentioned this before, like we're in pods where we're actually aligned to a marketing, a salesperson, and a channel rep. And it physically aligns us, but then also like, it just feels like we're all one team, we're working towards pipeline. And then it just feels like the morale around like everyone's working towards the same goal is there right now.
Well, you're using a very key word, and I think like if anybody has ever done like a team building event around the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Like trust is like, you need trust to build any kind of foundation from that. And you're both using those words and how you've built trust with the sales team and showing up as a partner. And again, around like those shared KPIs and how you're enabling them. Candace, can you talk a little bit more about like the personalization that goes into like, you're fine tuning your MQLs. These MQLs are coming to your sales team. How are you kind of coaching them on like how to reach out to them, how to like add that context, and like how you're doing that at scale?
Yeah, one kind of simple thing we've implemented recently, we have everything integrated into Slack. This is like internally, we only use Slack. We're not an email company at all, which is interesting. It's a quite the adjustment for new people. But what we've done with our leads is everything comes through Slack. We actually use AI to enhance an autoresponder based on all of the data we have in HubSpot and Salesforce and Zoom info. I mean, you name it, where we pull it in. We essentially craft a message saying, this is XYZ about the company. Here's the page they converted on. And here's a first email that you might want to personalize further that is relevant to this lead. And that, they will pop that into their sales off sequence and hit send. And it's the like speed to lead, just helps them tremendously. So that's one of the biggest ways. I mean, we have AI, a whole AI team in our marketing team. So there's a lot of different initiatives, but that is one that I've seen just like a quick, easy out the door thing that the BDR team seems to love.
And Kristen, how about you? How are you working? And especially, with Apptio becoming part of IBM, and there's, how are you thinking about kind of that personalization and really kind of meeting your audience where they are?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that I look at that personalization. I would say from a macro level in our global orchestrated, like highly integrated multi-channel campaigns, right? How many buzzwords can I use? Top of the funnel kind of level, that's where we're leaning heavy on that. I talked about earlier, that propensity to buy data. We also then narrow it down based on their behavior. So we measure multi-touch attribution, which is amazing. And so when we look at those behaviors, not only does that obviously inform our scoring, but what it also does is we utilize tools like Path Factory. So based on what someone's consuming, they can jump campaigns. They're not forced to kind of go through a specific sequence. So they're allowed to jump. We have multi-products, obviously. They can jump through different sequences based on what they're consuming, what they're intending, what that looks like. And as they go through it, that lead is who is dictating the information that they're seeing. We also then, because all of this is persona-based, one of the other things that we do is I have, if you will, like a protective category. So if you're a CFO, I limit the number of touches that you're ever going to get, or the types of information that's there, so that we're not kind of overburdening. So within the audience, we're using kind of precision as you go through what those different offerings are. I would then also say kind of further down the funnel, so this messaging that we have is then it follows and flows down the funnel, so that when our SDR and when our sellers are using messaging, it's aligned messaging that's been crafted for their use. Obviously, SDRs, salespeople, we want them to personalize, and some will personalize utilizing some of the AI tools that we have, but we also are following best practice there. You don't want to do any more than 20%. You don't want to be, hit by the spam blocker when it detects AI and the usage of AI that's kind of within the email that you're sending, those types of things. And so I just think there has to be a value add. So at all parts of that funnel, whoever's touching, we want to make sure that we're giving them that value add. So definitely using newer tools, but really then sticking to what's the strategy and using those newer tools to kind of innovate the strategy, if you will.
Yeah, I mean that it's actually an interesting point that you're making on like when you are looking at your kind of tech stack, and let's start talking about tech stack, because you guys named a few tools that you're using. It has to start with a strategy of like how you're going to use it, how you're going to implement it. I feel like, maybe a few years ago where it was like, okay, something new and shiny on the market, like, oh, let's add this to the stack. Let's start using this. It seems like it's going to solve all of our problems. But if it doesn't really start with a strategy or the people that are going to be managing it, et cetera, it's mostly going to sit on the shelf, right? So how are you thinking about your tech stack? How are you thinking about kind of combating that like tech bloat that we all feel as marketers? Candace, maybe you can give some insight there.
I mean, I always joke when we're interviewing somebody that like we have every tech solution come in here. We love it. And our kind of mentality is like, we test it quick, we get it implemented quick, we try to get everybody on board fast. And then we ultimately like have somebody who does a review with us where we decide like, do we renew the whatever it is? And I would say 5 out of 6 times, if something's not successful within like that first year of using it, we usually will part ways. And it's like, I've done it in the past where we've stuck with tech that we were like hoping would get better, hoping it would get better. And like, the promises from maybe we were oversold on in the sales cycle, or maybe we weren't informed enough ourselves based on just like, our own research, whatever it might be. So I think we kind of will cut our losses after a year. Although it sucks because if you're the one managing that project, you feel like, wow, I essentially wasted money. But there's also like, we've had one provider that we struggled with them for the first year, and then they were a startup and we wanted to invest in like startup tech. They made all of these improvements. They got on with us. We helped them build their roadmap for what their product looks like for the next year. And we've just seen like, so I guess if the tech is bad, ditch it. But if you've got buy-in from their company, and like this was actually their founder getting involved and trying to make it better, then and that one is one of our favorite tools now. So, that's kind of my opinion on tech stack, and I love it. And we try everything. We have, like I said, the AI team that is literally their whole job is looking for new tools to automate processes that we don't love doing ourselves, not to replace marketers, but just to replace the tasks that we all would like to procrastinate and put up to the side.
Yeah, I like that. Like, and a lot of people, and that's interesting. It's kind of like, try it out, fail fast, move on. But there's also something to be said. I don't know if you want to directly say what the company was, but getting in early with the company, we've seen a lot, like in our data, that buyers want to go with something. Like, people are so risk adverse these days. They're so skeptical. There's so much saturation when it comes to your tech stack. And so it's interesting to hear that you're taking an approach where you're like, hey, we kind of got early with this company. We really like the use case. And you can kind of shape how that startup is going to grow their product and the product roadmap. And you don't really get that when you go with something that's, more established, et cetera. So there's trade-offs with all of that.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're going on like maybe year 3 or 4 with its Goldcast. And we love them. They're big in San Francisco now, and they're really growing. So, I mean,
that's great.
It's not bad to say it on this call, but yeah.
No, that's great. And Kristen, how about you? I can only imagine all the intricate systems that you have to kind of make sure that are talking to each other, and all the team. And you talked a little bit about your marketing ops team. So I'd love to hear a little bit more of how you're approaching managing your tech stack.
Yeah, so I will kind of just talk about it maybe more from like an accessibility piece of it. And that's, I agree with everything Candace was saying, right? But I think just install the manage package. So much of what everybody takes on as a tool in marketing, historically, at least for me, is we have our tool, we're using our tool. Another company, you find they have the same tool, they're actually using it very differently. There are some great tools that it's super easy. Get the IT team and the Salesforce team or whatever your CRM is on early to allow you to install that managed package so that people can see the data. And by people, I mean your salespeople, your marketing. It allows you to then pull that in. For at least us, we are so integrated across all of our marketing tech stack into our CRM that if we were to go into a new CRM, we would have to take all of that with us. I've been in other companies where it's like, oh no, we have this, and maybe it's just kind of, your Marketo is what's kind of part of it. We have Name a Tool. It's also available as insights, data, information, graphs, views within the CRM tool. And whether you're looking at prospects or customers, the utilization of that information, whether I'm automatically utilizing it or whether it's a field marketer with a seller utilizing it as they're discussing a specific account, whether it's an SDR, it's such a basic thing, but if you can get the rest of your tech team on board to allow you in to the CRM to say, here's what we want to do, I just think that the tools become that much more stronger and allow you to actually innovate. And I go back to you're innovating your strategies around what it is that you're going out to do.
I totally agree with that. If it's not in our CRM for them to see in their view of an account, I don't want them logging into a whole nother platform to go try to get insights. I know my team will, but like sales teams, they're busy. They have to be quick with like pulling together the information on accounts. So I totally agree with that. I don't think if it doesn't integrate with our CRM, we almost don't even entertain it.
Yeah. And I mean, just to plug Trust Radius, right? Like when we thinking about renewals, and that I'm easily able to show kind of like a record and say, hey, that renewal is coming up, but look, this person is searching this, and this competitor. Let's get ahead of that. So for your next conversation, you're ready. You can kind of diffuse anything that might be going on or listen what the next steps are without, saying, hey, it's kind of creepy. I know you were searching this and I saw that, but in a way that's kind of super useful for presentations or readiness or whatever the next, CS, QSR meeting, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, like when you think about your CRM and combating like people logging into different systems, and it's already hard to get people to adopt things just on the marketing team. Like if you think you're going to bring in whatever new tool, project management, IBM platform, etc., like if that's hard enough, and then thinking about like, okay, what are the kind of shared tech stack with the salesperson? So we're all looking at the same data. We're all kind of looking at the same numbers, et cetera. That's like really, really difficult to do and drive adoption. So I completely agree. It's kind of like one of those things, like I always say, like if it's not on my calendar, it's not real. If it's not in your CRM, it's not real type of a situation. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we're coming up on time, but I would love to hear, when you're looking ahead and kind of towards the future, Candace, you talked a lot about, AI. Kristen, you're talking a lot about the alignment with your sales team. These are really forward pushing. That's going to completely change the way we think about B2B marketing. But what's kind of like your advice to marketers, out there that are thinking about, okay, FY 26 planning, and what should they be like thinking about as they're kind of building those plans? So Candace, maybe we can start with you.
I would say, this is something that I've learned from, I report to our CMO, and I've always felt with her, I'm not afraid to fail. And then I'm open to trying almost anything once, because I'm like, I know that there's not going to be like repercussions if I do something completely bizarre. And with limits, of course, and spend limits. But I just think like to be able to be innovative, you have to be able to take some risk, but also have your management understand that will come with some failures. But as long as you learn from the failures, document them, like use data to analyze how they performed. I think like that's my biggest advice. And it's made me a better marketer, being that I'm not afraid to take a little bit of a risk.
Yeah, I would agree. For me, I would just say, data is your friend, right? So return on investment tells me exactly where I'm going from an events perspective. It tells me the types of messaging that maybe we continue into next year or expand on based on the engagement that we're seeing, right? So that as a basis, but then be open to experiment is another key piece. So whether it's experimenting with tools, whether it's don't be afraid to experiment with process, because I think so many people get adverse to that. And then also the org. I think we are constantly forgetting about the org. We do what we call bubble assignments. And so for periods of time when we want to try something, we are looking for people that are kind of willing to do something a little bit extra to see like, hey, is this going to turn into something or not? And, one of those recent examples is really focusing on messaging for our SDRs as the bridge between a campaigns team and our SDR organization, and making sure that we have the right content, copy, assets being utilized and measuring those. It's not just kind of, they happen to use SalesLoft, but measuring what's happening there. But are we seeing impact? Is that team feel like, hey, I think this is working. I customized it this way, and being able to really scale their best practices that much more. And that role didn't exist a year ago. And we're like, I think we need someone to do this versus relying on every single sales development rep to kind of do that, and just let them speed through to their lead because they have templates and they have things very easily accessible at their fingertips.
Yeah. Well, I mean, both of those are so important. So thank you all so much. I think a lot of my takeaways was around kind of this sales alignment. Both of you sound so aligned with your sales team on the messaging, the personalization. Here's all this back end work that marketing's doing, but how do we kind of serve it up on almost on a silver platter? It's kind of what it sounds like. So we can make sure that they're super effective. So when it comes down to those shared KPIs and what we're really striving for, it doesn't come into like a finger pointing or who gets credit for what, but we're really moving as a unit. And I really think like demand gen teams and marketing teams that do that are going to be so successful. So thank you, ladies, so much for joining me today. It was great to see you both. And I know our audience is really thankful for all the expertise that you brought. So thank you. And thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.